Hello, hello. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for coming to art class today. We are going to be doing a watercolor painting today of a sea turtle. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be really fun because you can kind of make your sea turtle any color that you want. You can go its natural colors or you can make it rainbow. I am probably going to make mine purple. So I thought that would be fun for us. You will need watercolor paints and brushes. You're going to need something to rinse your brushes in, like a cup of water. You'll need a pencil and you'll need some watercolor paper. If you don't have watercolor paper, you can use drawing paper, you can use construction paper. You could even use your printer paper. It's just that the paper wrinkles a little bit when it gets wet. And so once you let the paper dry, you can kind of press that between some books or underneath a stack of books for a day or so, and it should flatten it out nicely. So why don't you go ahead and grab those supplies, get everything all together, and I will meet you back here in a minute after I change up my camera and we'll get started on our sea turtle painting. Alrighty, we're ready to go. Okay, you've got all your supplies together. You can probably see that there is a very light sketch of a sea turtle already on this paper, but I'm going to go over it darker so that you can see it a little better and we can walk step by step together through all the different steps of drawing this. Okay, I want you to have your paper in the horizontal position, which is called landscape, because your turtle's going to be swimming by, so we need room for his whole body. The body is about as big as my hand, the shell part of the body. So it will be a little bigger than your hands because your hands are smaller. So this whole area of my hand is about how big my shell is going to be. Okay, when I'm drawing this, I like to start with the head. The head is way bigger than my thumb. It's kind of like a big, huge, fat thumb. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to go pretty dark for you so you can see this. I'm going to draw around and stop like that. It's just like a curved sideways letter L maybe. I'm not sure what you'd want to call it. And then the turtle has like a little beak or a little snapper right here in the front. So it needs to come up like that and it's going to curve around. It forms his mouth and it curves up a little bit like that. Next we need to do underneath his mouth, the bottom jaw, lower jaw, so that comes here and we're going to stop about there. So if you notice where the two lines end here on our big fat thumb, which is his head, they're pretty close to each other. They're not even one right over the top of the other. They are a little bit angled. Okay, now let's start with the shell. The shell is going to start a little bit, just a little bit in, can you see, from that line. Comes up and around, over the back, down here. And as you're drawing this, I would like it if you could try to draw lightly. That way if you need to erase, you can, and also if you don't erase, your pencil lines won't show up in your painting, because once you paint over this, you can't erase the the pencil away. So if you can keep it light, that would be great. Okay, so it curves all the way down here to the back side of the tail, and then it's going to come around and down a little lower along the front. And this actually is his under shell. This part right here that I'm drawing is his underneath shell. His top shell, right here, it goes like this, okay? So we have this part right here, this whole section forms kind of like the underside or the belly. It's still a shell for him, but it's the under part. Okay? And then we're going to leave a little skip because that's where the flipper is. And then we're going to continue the shell on up here and over the top of his head like that. Okay, so now let's put in that big front flipper. The flipper, you want to kind of leave an area maybe like this. It's almost like a little cutout in the shell, or just a slight upward dent, a little hill maybe you might call it, where the flipper can come out, and then flipper comes down, and right when it gets to that bottom shell, it starts to fan out a little bit, and it has a couple of kind of wavy sections until it gets down to the bottom. about there. This is as long as, it's for me, it's as long as the end of my finger to where my finger meets the web here in between my finger and my thumb. If you're using a pencil, this is almost a full-length pencil. I didn't sharpen very much away. It goes from eraser to about here. Okay, so it comes down pretty far. And then it doesn't have a point. It has a little curve there. And you're going to have it come back up. It's nice and wide so he can swim. And it comes right up and it joins that other section of that little dent you made in the shell. Okay. Then we're going to have another flipper. Go right here, line up yourself with, there's the end of his little mouth. So kind of go right underneath with your pencil. Find the space right underneath there, and you're going to angle this out, and it really kind of follows the line. This line is here, and this one is a very similar line. It follows. But because it is the farther away flipper, it's going to look like it's a little bit shorter. So we don't want it to come down as far in the front. Okay, so this flipper is back behind, it's farther away from us. Now we need to do the little back feet flipper, guys. So we can see this one right where the belly shell and the top shell meet. The little back footy comes out, footy flipper, curves around and back up to the shell. And then, whoops, here's where you were before, right where the belly shell meets the top shell. Not right there, but just a little bit farther, kind of where that other leg is, right there. You're going to draw, I'll do it this way so you can see, you're going to draw the other footy flipper back here, like that. Okay, so it's much shorter because it's farther away and it's probably splayed out, not straight down, but kind of out. So that's what you're looking at. Now we need an eye, and it has a rather large eye, kind of shaped like an almond. And then there's a little bit of an eyelid over the top of it, kind of like that. Okay? All right, now the neck, the only other part that there is to draw would be, there's a lot of scales or kind of like markings here, like almost like what a giraffe would have. Giraffe, John, hear me say giraffe? Kind of like a giraffe in here, but they're so small we don't need to draw them all. We're going to invent them when we paint it. But on the top, let's give him some scales, some sections of his shell. I guess it's not really a scale. Okay, so right about here, I'm going to come around and I'm going to draw one and have it maybe attach sort of right around the neck there. And just like a giraffe, they have some space in between. So here's another one. And everybody's is going to be a little bit different on this. So, whoops, I don't like that. So as long as you leave a little gap in between each one, like I've done here, we're going to be fine. Okay, but let's start this. There's a ring around the edge here. So let's start another one here and kind of keep going with that ring. Maybe like this. If you make a mistake like I did, this is your time to erase. Alright, another one here. See how they're all a little bit different? And then this one right here, I'm going to do like this. And finally, we're going to have one big one that sort of wraps around the back so you can't really see where it goes. Okay, so that's all good. Now, the ones up here in the middle are a little bit larger, so we don't need as many. I'm going to give us one really big one that comes from here all the way down like this and fills in this whole big space here. Let's have a fun one right here. Whoops. I don't know what's wrong with my pencil hand today. I keep making these little mistakes. Good thing they have erasers, huh? Alright, let's have one up here, like that. And one more guy going right in here. Okay, that's all we're going to draw for right now. So now let's go to the paints. I think in the introduction part of our video today, I told you that I was going to do a lot of purples on this. So you can do any color that you want. There's no reason why you can't, for fun, have a pink turtle. So if you want to do that, do it. I'm going to use mostly all purple, and I want a lot of variety in it. If I were to just use this purple straight out of my spot here, it would be really dark. Look at that, it's super dark. So if I take some and I put it out here in my palette like this, then I can always get my brush wet and mix over here and make more watery paint that is less intense. This is really dark and intense. This is going to be a little bit more watery and lighter, almost like a lavender or a light purple. So if you're going to choose a color, I would suggest you do that. Have some really dark and have some more watered down. So we're going to just go get started on here using very careful hand, still, steady. Take your time. I'm going kind of fast because I want to get this done for you. But you're just going to fill in, almost like it's a coloring book, the different parts of the turtle. You might want to give these a little variety. Do something different in some of these. They're not all going to be exactly the same. If I painted everything just like this one, it would be a little boring. So what I did was I got some extra purple on, and I'm just going to maybe put a little extra dark down on there and let it blend itself. I just have paint on the brush and I touched it down while this was still wet. And I'm gonna, there's a spot there, and I'm just gonna let it mix its own self. Okay, so I'm gonna quietly paint away. I'm gonna speed this up and paint the rest of the shell for you now. Okay, did you notice on some of these I painted part of it first and then left the rest of it white? Then I came back in with just plain clear water on my brush and painted the rest of it with clear water, and it mixed in with the paint that was already there, and it made this kind of variation where it goes from really dark to really light. So that's something that you can do. Another thing that you can do for fun if you want is, while this paint is still wet, maybe here and there you could get a second color. Like I'm going to take a little tiny bit of this bluish turquoise that I have. Why not? And put a few little pieces here and there on some of these. A little hint of another color. To add variety, anytime you add variety to something, it makes the people who are looking at your art look at it longer. And isn't that what we want? Is for them to enjoy our art, our paintings, and look at it longer, look at them longer. Okay, now we have done the whole main shell. Now we have to do the legs. I'm going to save the head for last. So we talked about this before. The legs have, I need to turn my paper a little bit, lots of little things like this. I don't know if you call them shells, scales. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but notice how I have changed. They're not all the same size. Some are shorter, some are fatter, but they're all starting right from the edge of this flipper. Okay? And now I have run out of as much paint on my brush, so they're much darker up there and they're lighter down here. So this is what your job is to paint this all in and change it up so that you have some darker and some lighter. Up here, maybe some of these guys are gonna, be a little bit shorter. So you're just filling it in. Think of it as filling in like your bricks on a house, or spots on the giraffe, or I don't know, whatever you think of. So and let them be a little irregular. I don't want them to have these kind of scratchy ends. I'm trying to smooth those out a little bit. So take your time. I'll stop talking and I'm going to do all of the legs, they're not even legs, all of the flippers while I speed this up so you can watch. Okay, notice how the faraway legs do not have so many spots all over them. They have only around the edge. That is because what you're looking at here and here and here is really the underside of the turtle. So I'm adding a little blue while I'm talking. So they're going to be a kind of whitish color. They don't have a lot of these spots. I think that probably part of the reason that the turtles are colored this way is for some camouflage. So if they're under the water, maybe the ocean, the light on the waves, or maybe some of the underwater plants help to camouflage the turtle if he's got those markings. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is the head, and then we're going to deal with all this underneath stuff, and we'll be almost done. Okay, so for the head, I'm still sticking with that mostly purple, but I think I'll add a little bit of other color on there. He does have on the back side of the head, right here at the top, I guess it's the top of the head, there's more distinct markings like what you see here, but then as it gets down on the face, they get a little more blurry. So I'll show you how to do that. First we'll start with some of those distinct ones, just like we did before on all the other parts of the turtle. I'll take some maybe underneath the eye, like this. And coming up over his eye and onto the forehead and the top of the nose. And I'm going to stop right about there. Now, the rest of it's getting a little bit fuzzier, meaning more blendy. So what I'll do for that is with just a clear water brush, no paint on it, I'm going to put a little water right here and right here. Excuse me, allergies. So I'm not letting this clear water touch any of the other things that I've already painted, because if I did, it would smear. So now I have a little paint on, and I'm just going to put a little paint and watch it swim around wherever I added that water in there. Okay, so it's just kind of swimming around on its own, doing its own thing. Even if I rocked my paper a little bit and tipped my paper, see how it's going up around his neck there? Okay, it makes kind of a softer look. You can do that underneath too. So we can take this time to put a little bit of clear water just in that belly section and maybe on part of this fin, making sure not to touch anything that's already painted, because like I said, if you do and it's already painted, it is going to get blurred together. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit up here, not too much because it actually has a little bit of other color on there. I'm going to take a little bit of, it's almost kind of like a brown, but it's really, really watery. Okay, see that? So I'm just going to put a little bit of this on there and let the water that's there blend this for me. So I'm not sitting there with my brush painting over and over and over. I'm just going to tip it so that any of the drips flow around. I have to be really careful that I don't tip too far, because what if it drips into another section? Okay, so I can work a little bit of this around. Can get up under his armpit here. Alright, and if there's any of this left on my brush, that kind of brownish color, there's no reason why I can't let some of it come up into the shell here in these in-between spaces. It's really subtle. You can't see it very much. And then, for fun, how about we let there be something else on the face that we didn't have before? What if we have a little pink? If you don't like the idea of that, well, how about a little green or something different? Give him or her some character up in here. Maybe a couple little areas. Okay, now we need to attach the head to the body here. So for this, I'm going to do really strong purple, and I'm just going to go right up in here. Now see, it's moving right there because it's getting into that wet area, but that's okay because I knew that would happen. I'm just trying to give the part of his head, his little neck that comes out from the shell, I'm trying to have that be really dark. And then maybe under here, I'll do some dark, just right in that one area. And then maybe even here, I'm going to paint over those spots that I had a little bit and kind of just have really dark where he comes out from inside the shell. Okay? All right. I think that's good. Maybe one last thing. I'm just going to take a little clear water and go over these because I want those to blend a little bit on top of his head. And now we need to do the eye. If you choose pure dark black for the eye, it kind of looks like a black hole. I suggest that you mix a black by doing something like taking your blue and maybe some orange, or maybe some purple and some blue, and just making a really dark color. It doesn't have to be black. It's going to seem like black, but just make a really dark color. If you have black in your paint set, how about you mix a little blue in with it? I want to leave a tiny spot of white in the eye. Let me zoom in this important part so you can really see it well. Okay. I want to leave a little spot of white in the eye so that he has a highlight. And I'm being really, really careful to make sure that I don't touch any of those other parts of the head that are still wet. If you're nervous about that, why don't you wait and let everything dry before you paint your eye? Okay, now my eye is actually a really, really dark blue, but it looks black. Okay, so there's the eye. Let's turn it. Okay, I do want to do a little something on that eyelid. So I think what I'll do is I'll take just the tiniest little bit of that paint that I used inside the eye and really water it down so it's light, and then I'll put it on almost like eyeshadow or something. And you could even put that a little bit more here and there on the face if you want. Okay, so there you go. You have now painted a sea turtle. If you feel like you want to put some more colors around, you could take some of the eye color and layer. If this is already dry, there's no reason why you can't put another layer of paint on top of what's already there. That's kind of a fun thing to do. You just want to blend it in so that you don't have a lot of lines. How you blend it in is you paint, I'll show you. Let's say I want to do some dark right here. I'm painting another layer of dark. I'm using the eye color on top of this purple, okay? But I don't want to just leave it like that, so I rinse my brush and I blot it on a paper towel so it's damp. It's not really wet, and before this dries, I can just come along the edges and kind of smooth it in, kind of blend it in with everything else. And now I don't have like that hard line of the dark color that we had there. Okay, so just take a little look at your turtle and see if there's some area that maybe you have more white than you want. You want to change something up. You don't, maybe you want, like there, I put a little shadow under the eye. Maybe you want a shadow under here. Right here I kind of messed up. I went outside the line quite a lot, so I'm just going to fake it and make it look like I meant to do that. So think about that. Think about putting some different colors in there. Don't go crazy, just maybe do a few things and then take a look at it. Here's another place where I added dark, and now I'm going to blend it in by having just this wet brush with no paint on it to help blend that. Maybe here. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you're proud of your sea turtle. I would really love to see pictures of it. So please turn it in on Google Classroom or send me a picture with a phone. And there we go. Have a great weekend, guys. See you next week.